Hi, I'm Sean Stone. You're watching Buzzsaw. About 5 years ago, I began a personal journey of awakening to some very supernatural realities. I began to experience the paranormal, let's say. I was breaking into haunted houses, abandoned mental hospitals, and trying to document this journey, I ended up making a film called Greystone Park to try to give you a view into what it's like to deal with the unseen. I think most people have had encounters with phantoms or ghosts or supernatural phenomenon of some sort. So I tried to document my awakening through this film. And in the process of this journey, came to encounter some very strange things that have been talked about for centuries. Everything from shadow beings to astral projection, ghosts, demons, and what's called the sixth sense, or some people refer to it as the third eye, the part of our consciousness that wakes up and starts to see the unseen and know that which we normally would not be certain of. And in the course of my journey, I came across a book called The Handbook of the Navigator, written by Pepin. And he's joining me today. He also has another #1 bestseller out that just came out this year called Igniting the Sixth Sense. So he'll be joining me now to talk about his own awakening process and what we've shared in this journey. So Eric, you talk about your own process of awakening to be able to write these books. You reference paranormal experiences that you had. Was this in your childhood, or as you came?
You know, I was kind of indoctrinated into it. My great-grandmother was kind of into spiritualism, my father, my grandmother, so it was kind of just expected. I mean, I remember already at probably 8 years old, seances going on in the house, and, you know, everybody kind of having hoopla. There was an entity or something that appeared in the corner of the house, and they were kind of trying to talk on the other side with an entity. And I was standing in the doorway from the other side, looking at this yellowish, kind of greenish glow thing. And I said to my father or to the people there, hey, you know, and they all looked, and they literally jumped out of the table fell over, they all ran out the door, and I just sat there looking at this thinking, is this for real, you know, at a very young age.
So you're saying you saw the entity before your family?
Before they did. They were concentrating on the table doing their seance, but something appeared like to the side of the room. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to be kind of spying on the family or, you know, whoever was over doing their thing.
But see, I would say most people would not consider that an ordinary childhood. And
no,
as far as
not at all.
Seeing seances performed, I mean, in fact, as you know, a lot of people would say that's Satanism, because you're not supposed to consort with spirits or draw them into this reality. So, I mean, you're saying that was a lineage from your family. As far as, was it religious in principle?
You know, my father's side were practicing Catholics, but I was kind of raised non-religious. My mother and my father separated when I was about 3, so my mother was atheist and very scientific, where my father was actually into spirits, ghosts. So when I would go and visit him on the weekends or spend a week, that was my exposure to it. The logic was going home and having my mother explain everything away logically. Mm-hmm. So I kind of adapted a viewpoint of science versus spirituality and kind of found the middle road.
Yeah, I understand that, because my background, I mean, I never recall having any kind of spiritual close encounter, if you want to call it. I had studied it from just a curiosity at a young age of having some lucid dreams and past life memories, maybe, I'm not sure, but the point was that around 19, I was fascinated by Masonry, the esoteric schools, and obviously they're interested by these phenomenon. And coming from a textual point of view of studying magic by from books and trying to understand it logically, it was only when you encounter it directly, they call it almost like the right brain, which is the more immediate, sensorial part of our mind, had to experience it. For me, going into these haunted places, that I could actually start to see, okay, there is reality to this. So I understand what you're saying about having that left-right dynamic to make sense of these things.
For me, it was basically, it drew a lot of questions for me already very young. For instance, if a ghost is a ghost, how does it go boo if it doesn't have vocal cords or lungs? How does it hear you if it doesn't have, eardrums? How does it see you if it doesn't have eye cones for reflective light and communicate in whatever way it does? It's certainly doing it. The question is, how is it producing all those things? So those are the questions that started to burn away at me very young.
Well, I would be curious, did you discuss with your father what his intention was in calling these spirits?
You know, I think for them it was pastime, it was entertainment. You know, they were doing free handwriting, table rapping. I think it was just exploratory also for him. I think he was probably pretty young at that time also. Probably was in his late 20s maybe, early 30s. And so I think it was just him learning and it being the thing. And so it was just exploratory. And my involvement was basically, you know, dragged out in front of everybody. Do you see the aura? And I'm like, what do you mean? They say, do you see anything? And I'm like, well, kind of. And then so it was encouraged already. And then, you know, I adapted and I learned and I began to understand. So I think I had an advantage very young that I was surrounded by believers and they just simply expected me to be able to do things rather than what is this or that. But they kind of pushed me in the forefront.
Right, right. But you never felt that they were training you for something?
Well, I wouldn't say that they were training me for something. I don't think that they had the foresight. I think it was just an interest. And when they realized I could do things, it simply expanded on that. And where my family then would be, well, why don't you try doing this? Or why don't you try doing this? Or here's a piece of jewelry. Can you tell me anything about it? And this is how it kind of progressed.
It's, as I said, it's a very unique experience to have as a child.
Yeah.
We have heard stories and reports of kids who were, you know, involved with various spiritualist or even satanic practices at a young age, and then their energy has been drawn upon for the ritual.
Yeah.
Did your father by any chance have association with like Masons or any of the esoteric groups?
Nothing
Really?
like that.
So it was just that one, because historically there were of course these societies, these spiritist societies that had cropped up in the early 20th century.
Sure, I've been approached later on in my 20s, you know, so by various organizations and stuff, but it wasn't until much later in my life.
So did you feel that they were, that they in a sense understood that you had an awakening or a certain sixth sense, that that's
absolutely.
why they approached you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a time in New York, I was pretty young, and you know, I was doing psychic work and readings, and I got known for that. And that's when I had been approached probably about twice, and it was kind of very strange stuff and very strange location, and it didn't never sit with me very well. And yeah,
in the sense that they were trying to recruit you.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on.
And so ultimately, from having that kind of background, you know, it's, as I said, it's orienting you towards the realm of being a psychic or working in that position. How did you conceive of that realm? Because it's very experiential. I mean, you're talking about seeing a spirit here, having an encounter there. How did you begin to collate those experiences and start to understand the science behind it? If there was a cohesion to these entities, how they appeared, what they were doing, what their motive force was.
I really never understood what their intention was, and you know, it's only later as one grows older and your intellect kind of has a better comprehension, you kind of rifle through all those experiences. I mean, I've had experiences where I've had an entity appear in my room that just looked like something out of you know, Tom Cruise, the movie there, fantasy movie he did, where it has this big red kind of demon kind of creature in there. And I literally had this thing step literally on the couch and overcharge me and then throw me on top of a bureau. The bureau broke behind my back. And that was a huge eye-opener for me. Like, that was probably the most real moment that I've ever experienced anything affect me physically or anything else. Other than that, it was usually seeing something from a distance or having different minor phenomena happen. So, yeah.
So that was directly, it actually assaulted you.
It assaulted me, yeah.
And you felt it.
Yeah, yeah.
And how did you come to deal with protection, psychic protection against these things?
You know, I at that time, I had put my hand up to push, and just to it's the only thing I think it's just natural to, you know, and at that time I felt something move from my lower gut, come up out of me and move out of my body, and it just moved back and it dissipated. So this again was another eye-opener for me that there is ways to deal with this. And what it basically comes down to is what I teach now from all the experiences in my life is that we too are obviously organic, but we are also energy. And we have an energy field, and you know, you can look at martial arts and say chi, you can look at prana, you can look at kundalini energy. These are the kind of energies and only kind of energies that are going to affect something that's made of energy. Right. It's not going to organically be affected, but so you got to counter that by understanding and controlling, manipulating your own inner energies. And that's basically where I began to kind of have a counter effect with it.
Well, I think that's very much my conclusion that I came to when encountering these entities, that it was not only a foreign phenomenon, but something that I was also manifesting because my energy was feeding into it, or if you want to call it like a demon, each of us have vices, inner weaknesses, right? Inner
sure,
demons
absolutely.
And when you let your fear feed fear can then feed those demons.
And I think that's what I seen as when I was attacked. I think there was genuinely something there, but do I think it looked like this? No, I think that was my idea of what I should expect it to be, because literally I seen it like building and materializing. It never got to the point where it was solid looking, but it became what I envisioned or imagined. But it doesn't. You can say illusion, but you cannot dismiss the effect of what happened.
Right.
And the effect is that I think that they operate in the sense where they can build up energy, and it's just like sticking your finger in a light socket. You're going to get short, you're going to throw yourself across the room because the muscles are going to jerk and expand in your body. I think that's what happened with me. I think it jolted me with electricity, and my body jolted backwards from it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the electricity and the nature of that, because as you know from the Muslim world, they call jinns made of smokeless fire.
Yes.
And we can imagine electricity would be smokeless fire, and that's why these entities exist very much the way that the ghosts, demons exist in an unseen form that might be plasma-based as far as the state of matter it would be in, right? But we don't see it normal vision unless we're in perhaps an altered state or a different level of awareness.
100% agreement. Yeah.
So is this, as far as awakening, do you advocate that people awaken to be able to heighten their awareness, to be able to see these entities or to deal with them?
I've really taken on a very different direction in my adult life when I look at all these things, because I think there's different layers. I say there's the metaphysical New Age view. There is, of course, more of a scientific academic view, if you can accept that they exist. What are they? And for me, I'm at the point now where I look back at the teachings for thousands of years of gurus and mystics, and they say, well, reality is an illusion. And then we have the movie The Matrix, and we have all these different things out there. The Matrix is nothing new. It's been said for thousands of years. So the bottom line is that I think everything is like a computer program. I think it's illusionary based, and we're a consciousness based in it. I think that when we encounter entities or beings or stuff, they're either from other dimensions per se, other programs running bumped up against us. And I think that they come in and out. And I think the reason we don't have consistency with encounters, or that they're elusive, is I think there's auto-correcting level to reality. And I think they're able to manifest through, and then I think the auto-correction system will shut it down. And it's very complicated. It has to do with us. We're all interconnected to this, if you call it the Gaia mind, I call it other things. And as soon as we become aware of something, it becomes aware that there's a problem or a phenomena happening that doesn't fit in the norm. And I think it begins to shut that down or dissipate it or something. So,
well, you make the allusion to the body, the idea that we are cells within the body of God, let's say. The universe is the body of God, and here we are. Those who are awake are like the white cells, right, that are fighting these, what could be. You
did read the book.
Yeah, well, that are fighting what we would call demons or viruses in a sense, right? Some kind of foreign, something that's foreign that can kill you, but it can also be healthy. Let's be honest. The truth is that we live in a very polarized mind frame these days, where people think it's either good for you or it's bad for you, right? But at the end of the day, as we know, viruses and bacteria are necessary, and they actually help us evolve. The question is, can we evolve in the process of fighting it, or are we going to let it kill us?
I think that at the end of the day, when I look at the big picture, you can say good and evil, or are there white cells? I think of it like in the book I wrote. There's red cells and there's white cells, and there are white cells in the body that are more conscious. They can recognize a virus in your body. Well, a red cell can. It just goes up to it like a dinosaur. It'll eat it. A white cell's able to call upon other white cells and say, "Look, we've got a problem. There's enough of us. Let's go deal with the job." I think at the end of the day, there are also multi-levels to this. I think that if we did not get challenged or have this darker side to confront us, we would be placid, we'd be complacent, and there would be no growth. We would never evolve. We'd never challenge ourselves to think. There's what for? We have everything we want. So I do think that there's a necessity to the chaos. I think that there's a necessity to growth, and I just think that at some point there has to be a checkmate level in order to keep it from getting out of control. So I think it's there to stimulate consciousness and growth for a collective. But at the same token, I think that white cells are more aware, more conscious of these presences, and it's really their job to try to keep it in checkmate.
Yeah. Well, in the course of trying to spread your knowledge of this and your understanding, did you feel that you came in at any point under heavier attack from these entities or from any kind of outside forces to stop you?
Well, of course, I think that I think that the more you inform people, or the more knowledge you put out there, there's more people awakening, per se, we call it. They become informed, knowledgeable, and it's like little lights going off. And the more that you start putting that out there, I think there's a counter reaction to that, and it's going to confront you and try to suppress that progress.
Sure. And so anything specific that comes to mind when I mention that?
No, none at all.
No?
What do you have in mind?
No, I'm just wondering. I mean, for example, I know that your offices, the Higher Balance Institute was raided. Was it 2006?
Sure.
Do you think that? I mean, do you think a consequence of the work that you were doing? Did you feel?
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. It's pretty much all over the internet. It's kind of old news at this point. But I had a past employee there. He was 17, 2 months before his 18th birthday. We gave him some work, kind of get him off the street, kind of get straight. And he found he wanted money for an apartment. He wanted money for this and that. And I was like, look, I'm not going to do that. We'll help you get a room or something like that. Long story short, he got some attorney that was smoking cigarettes outside. He was walking by and bummed for a cigarette. He started to complain to ask for if he could get back pay or money that he felt that we owed him or something. And one thing led to the other, and it became a thing about whether I had sex with him and yada yada. And it just kind of exploded. And a long story short, we didn't know what was going on until it probably was all over. And it took almost 2 years just to kind of figure out what was going on. And the bottom line is that he never was interested in the sexual stuff. The lawyer basically pushed it on it. The lawyer went to the police department, not him. He didn't want to say any of those things. The lawyer seen money. They did a background check on me. We found this all out later because there was another person involved with this person who made this accusation. He came clean and said, they made it up and all this other stuff, and for his involvement. And so I think that what happened is that a local DA found it was the gold mine he was looking for. We didn't know it at the time, but he was going to run for a judge position.
Right.
And I think he just jumped all over it, and he pushed it through. All of my people looking at it say, there's nothing here, there's nothing here. They says, oh, there's sex videos, there's this, we have this, we have this. Well, the court case went in there. They looked at everything. They went on for 4 days. They investigated my whole life. All my computers were sent to the FBI. They did forensic checks on it, deep checks on it. Everything came back zilch, just nothing there. They investigated my whole life, legit, no problem, blah, 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 blah. Bottom line is all 90% fabricated other than my name. And that's, I would not be here today if there was one iota of truth to it.
Of course, I'm sure if in a situation like that, they would love to send you. They would love nothing more than to send you to jail. And so the fact that you were let off is indicative of the fact that.
And they were going after innocent. Christian votes, and we found out later was pandering to all the churches and stuff. And this all came out later. And the other judge had another committee look into it, and there was a lot of shady stuff. And I think it's still being looked at today by whatever.
Sure, I think it's just. Again, we're dealing with a society that, frankly, is very sick, and that's
it was the point. Totally corrupt. A friend of ours from Mexico basically met us, and they looked it up online, and they seen it, and they were like, "Oh my God, how So we, my friend explained the situation, showed them, what documents we have in them, and they were like, "Oh my God, we thought this only happened in Mexico, that there was corruption like this, and that they would slide stuff through and fake evidence and do all this stuff." And it happens here. It's real. And I never would have given it a second thought had it not been that I personally had it happen to me.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the point, that we do live in a society that's very sick, that we give credence to law and order, to the authorities, to the police, the DEA.
And I'll never do it again. I was just the opposite. When they came in there, I was like, whatever you want. We'll drive you anything to get anything you want. I bent over backwards for them. And I just could not believe the amount of, I mean, in order to get a warrant for to go through the what do they call it, secret jury or whatever, grand jury, you have to give evidence. Well, if there was no evidence, no pictures, nothing, not even a nothing, okay, how do you get that through? There's only one way, and it's not the truth, and that's the DA presenting that. So we can only speculate because nobody's allowed to know.
Right.
But that's my personal opinion, and to me, I base it on common sense. Look at the facts, look at what's there, look at the evidence.
Right. And as I said, and the sad thing is that we have a way of looking at the world where the police are right, the DA is right, and if they charge
Never
you,
again for me.
It's also slanderous. I mean, the truth is we've seen that many figures have been harmed in being slandered, whether it's libeled as sexual offenders or rapists or anti-Semites. I mean, there's so many conspiracy theorists. There's so many words that can be put out by the media, and all of a sudden people fear and associating with that person or even listening to what that person has to say. And the truth is, at the end of the day, I don't care who you are. I don't care how bad of a person. If what you're saying is true, then the point is we should still give credence to that.
And it's hard to defend yourself because there's so much bureaucracy. You're told you can't say anything, you can't show this evidence, you can't do this, don't do, and then the lawyers get involved and they want to make money and they don't want you to talk about nothing, so they can kind of push it out as far as they can. And I just think I think the whole system is just bad.
It is, and that's why we go back to this issue of the white cells, the red cells. Right now we're in a system that's predatory, that likes to fight wars on things, and that's like the red cells just going around trying to gobble everything up. Doesn't matter if it's the war on terrorism, the war on drugs, the war on AIDS, the war on poverty. It's like we declare war, and by declaring war, you are ultimately going to end in war. You cannot. There's not going to be a peace.
I agree, and I've thought about this for a long time is how do you where is the end to all of this? Where does the madness stop? And unfortunately, I just don't see an end to it. I just think that it just goes on and on and on unless you're going to have an outright revolution. And even if you have an outright revolution, was another 50, 100 years, it's right back to the same process.
Right.
So it's very frustrating.
But you say the awakening process, and I think that many people look at the year 2012 as kind of a demarcation point. Of the global awakening. More people seem to be waking up to the fact of higher domains of reality, higher ambitions, the realization of who we really are.
Access to knowledge. Knowledge is freedom. The more people know, the better. The problem is that the internet, you really can't trust everything that's on there. There's a lot of junk, but I just think that the average person has access to so much information now. And, this is why we have to protect the internet also from control from governments and stuff like that, is that it's the access to the information that frees the people, it frees the mind, it makes you question the authority.
Sure.
So
but I think first you might see a bit of a breakdown. I think you're going to have a madness point first because the amount of information is so overwhelming to the psyche. And
absolutely
frankly,
true.
We have many people who are going to face sort of these contradiction in their own way of living, in the sense of these are my beliefs. It's like it's almost dissociative. It's like these are my beliefs, but then this is what I'm being confronted with, and at some point your psyche's going to split. And there can be a lot of, I think, madness that comes before the new awakening, because when that light first comes in, it's scary.
I think we're seeing it already. I think we're seeing it in Egypt. I think we're seeing it in other countries. I mean, some people say to me, well, oh, look at these terrible things happening in nature. I said, these things have always happened. It's just a matter of how much you know to compare to history and time. But at the bottom line, I think it's escalating faster and faster and faster and faster. So we're seeing more reaction, and I think that eventually we're going to see it here in the U.S. I think that momentum is already happening.
Sure. They say the time even speeding up in a sense. That people are feeling like that time. There's a quickening in it, right? That who knows? We don't know quite what's coming, but we know that there are great things in store.
Right.
Do you get anything as far as from your psychic perception? Do you get any instinct, inclination on it, or do you see it? Are you unable to predict?
I try to approach everything logically. There's a number of things that I of course sense and see, and I'm pretty accurate with almost everything I say. But I don't like to say that it's necessarily psychic. At this point, there's just a lot of logic, common sense involved, and you can say intuitive gut feeling.
Sure.
But I think that what do I see in the future? I think I see what everybody everybody else sees. I see a lot of problems with climate change. I see a lot of problems, with the finances in the U.S. and China going on. I mean, it's pretty much just the standard stuff, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I just think it's going to escalate to more tension. I think there's going to have to be a approach to how we do things, and I think technology is just going to make the world almost the whole Illuminati, of course, concern is whether we're going to be a one world government or not. And I remember this back since I've been a teenager hearing this. And if you look at bitcoins and you look at these things starting to evolve and take traction, okay, and you look at the commonality of the people now with the internet and having access and communicating globally, it's not like we have to be not sure what to make of other cultures. We're talking to them, and this, of course, is what I think governments don't want. They don't want us to really know each other, and so I do see a one world government coming. It's just a matter of is it good or is it going to be bad, and where are the new manipulations of control going to come in from?
So you believe in the Illuminati?
Absolutely.
And is it just from research or from like any personal experience?
No, like it says, I know that they exist. Back in, when I was around 20 years old, I was introduced to a lot of people being kind of the rage out in New York City, and I had met some people that introduced me as being part of an organization, which had to have been the Illuminati. But it was on Staten Island. It was a big mansion. They had guards walking on the walls. It was all lit up, and and I went in there, and he was this art dealer guy, and he was not what he was. And they were very interested in my skills and my talents if I would get involved with some of their projects and stuff like that. And they, my gut feeling was this is not the place I want to be, and these are not the people I want to be involved in. And it's I don't really talk about it much because I really don't know what my comfort level is of really kind of going into it too much. It was a long time ago.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't like you didn't witness any of the rituals or whatnot?
No, I seen the rooms that they took place in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you feel the energy?
They gave me a tour, and I thought, yeah, absolutely.
It was very dark, negative energy.
Yeah, well, I don't want to call it a sex parlor, but that's kind of how it felt. It felt like the red candles in there. They had their altar in the middle down there. I mean, and these are big people with big money at the time.
Sure.
And when you think about cultists, you think about just your normal run-of-the-mill teenagers kind of reading Anton LaVey's book, and these guys really were the real deal. It was very, very almost scary to see.
And I think Kubrick pointed it out in the film Eyes Wide Shut very accurately. Yeah. What do you think, or what is the need for the sexual nature of the magic? Why the sexuality behind it?
Well, I think it's just common sense. I think the common sense is it's one of the strongest human needs. It's a human drive, and it's a number of things. It's procreation, makes it one of the strongest drive versus just as much as eating or needing water or breathing. It's right up there. And I think that there's a lot of people who have dominance with it. There's people who want to manipulate it and control. There's the creation of life, and if you can control the creation of that life. So I think there's a fascination built into sexual procreation in all human psyche. And as we evolve over time, we become more complex, more intellectual. You can't get rid of that natural drive in you, so it gets built upon and corrupted.
But you're saying that in the course of these rituals being sexual in nature, that then there's a tremendous energy feeding that goes on by the rest of the participants.
Well, I think that if I look at it, it's more or less a great recruiting tool for them, because it's like, here, you can indulge in this. And it's a great way to then convert people over to your thinking. You socialize, you have, and it's also like, you got to keep our secret. And so there's a bonding there also. So I think it's a big recruitment system.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because oftentimes there's you find amongst powerful politicians and businessmen a lot of pedophilia that goes on, right? A lot of sex with minors, especially young boys, a lot of homosexuality. Again, do you think this is just the ultimate nature of corrupted power? Like, you're so powerful, you can have any girl you want. Let's now go to the next level of where
money
I can take
corrupts.
this to.
Money corrupts, and I think that human nature, everybody has deep-seated interest. It's a matter of whether you're going to act on them or not, or if you have self-control or not, or yada yada. And I think it's just about just being too much for them to be able to control.
But they're apparently the ones that are in control of our destinies as a planet.
It's very scary, yeah.
So at the end of the day, though, you find that these forces are for the most part, negative. You didn't find any higher level power brokers who actually have more positive orientation?
No, I did. And those are the people that I tried to associate with, and then I was happy to work with and do business with, more or less. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were more in the stock market and just normal kind of stuff. And there were some treasure hunters that had boats and equipment to go out to, and they wanted me to help them find stuff. And so I did some stuff for them. And so it was more of a positive note. As far as the spiritual goes, I think that when you have good people, I don't think that you need to have like a church of goodness, because I think that gets corrupted too. I'm pretty anti-religion for most religions. And I think that what you have to do is you got to look at human nature and find the good in people and ask what kind of good are you doing in your life for other people.
Yeah, 100%. Did you, just as far as the awakening goes and the idea of the third eye, or the sixth sense, did you feel that that these people who you felt were Illuminati, were they more awakened to the realm of, you know, higher senses and entities, and they were just
Absolutely.
associating with the
they had a
ones?
couple people there that were definitely scoping me out, and, you know, telepathically, if you will, and such, and assessing me and evaluating me, I'm sure. Yeah.
And the entities seem to partake in it too. If the lore goes that the entities are watching us, the jinns are watching us, and
you can say that,
communication,
sure.
In communication with these people. And that's why there's a lot of deals that go on where there's deal making. They make blood sacrifices or even sexual sacrifices to these.
I don't really know much about that. I don't involve myself in that area, and you know, I think that a lot of people that are into ritualistic levels and Satanism and stuff like that, I think that they're just. I just can't relate to it. It's to me, it's just desperate. It's low education. It's low intellect, and that's what I really think. I think that. I think that if they want to indulge in that, that's them. But you know, I don't see a lot of that anymore. I think it's like kind of like 80s mentality, 90s mentality, to kind of look at the Illuminati, or they're doing this or that stuff. I do think that there's a level of people that are into power spiritually, that are into power for money. I think that they're willing to do whatever they have to do to get what they want. And I think that if we don't smarten up to what is the new form of what this has evolved to, I think we're going to be left behind. And I think that the correct direction that one should be looking in is remote influencing groups. I think that, I don't want to say they're a group, but it's a big religious organization with an S. And I think that they have their hands in different things, and I think that they have people they're training to manipulate everything from corporations to get what they want on political levels, and manipulate and control the people who pull the strings on the politics. And I think there's a lot of that going on, and I'm surprised I haven't seen a lot of other people catching on to that yet, that's kind of the new way of controlling and manipulating.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned remote influence, because I think of the film by Christopher Nolan. What was the one with DiCaprio when they're stealing? Inception, where they're stealing the secrets, right? And so they're stealing secrets from people's minds, or planting secrets and ideas into people's minds in their sleep. Right? And that's very indicative, because I think Nolan, from what we can see in the Batman films, for example, has a lot of Illuminati symbols, metaphors, planted. So the idea of inception, as you say, is this idea of remote influencing very powerful people.
I think that's where it's going. I think that the technology is going to work with people with psychic abilities. They're going to marry them together, and I think the people who've got power and influence are going to want to use those people to manipulate other people to get what they want. And I think it's happening already. I think it's been happening for the past decade.
So then I think that the real solution we're looking towards is the idea of everyone coming to their own awakening, coming to their own awakening to know themselves, to be able to empower themselves and have protection for themselves spiritually and psychically.
I think that the more, my controversy is if I say there's red cells and there's white cells. A red cell is a non-spiritual person, and a white cell is somebody who self-reflects and believes that there's something more to what they are. Red cells, I always say, are the workers. They build the bridges, they build the houses. They don't contemplate. They don't care. And it's hard for me and other white cells to imagine, like, how could you not ponder on God or the universe or time or space? And you're just like, I just want to go do my baseball game and do whatever. I think that through self-reflection, you awaken your consciousness. If you don't go down the route of organized religion and you can expand your horizon and see the world for what it is and the universe for what it is, I think that you expand spiritually. And I think those people become conscious and aware and can feel others trying to control and manipulate through whatever sources or powers or psychically, whatever you want. And that there in itself is a form of enlightenment. It's a form of an awakening. And that's what prevents that or filters that control.
I think it's a very good way to put it. And
Thank you.
And it's a good place to end, because then we can leave it to the audience to go out and check out your books for themselves and find out, what are they? Are they white cells or red cells?
Yeah,
Like,
there you go. There you go. And I'll get more angry mail about red cells and
Well, I think red cells exist. They
have to.
automatons,
It's just the way it is. They have to exist for us to be here. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh yeah, same here.
Pleasure. All right, well, there you go. Check out his books, Handbook of the Navigator, Igniting the Sixth Sense, or the Meditation Within Eternity. Three interesting books that you can find on Amazon, and explore it for yourself and learn more. All right, this is Sean Stone signing off.